Yesterday, I was able to get my first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine here in Mumbai. I thought I'd make this video just sharing my entire experience with you guys, right from how you can register to be vaccinated, how you have to go about getting a slot, as well as my entire experience with the actual vaccination process, what I had to do at the center and how all of that went, as well as the side effects that I have experienced in like the last 25 to 26 hours. Hi guys, it's Magali. Today's video is very different from anything I've made on my channel so far, but with the really intense second wave of the coronavirus crisis here in India, I thought that this was something extremely important to share because I was able to get my first dose of the vaccine, as I said yesterday, and I feel very relieved about that fact. My parents are also fully vaccinated. The third phase of vaccination started from 1st of May 2021 in India. So when I say third phase, what I mean is the first phase was the vaccine drive opened up for people above 60 years of age. The second phase, it was for people between the ages of 45 to 60, and for this third phase they opened up vaccines for people between the age group of 18 to 45. I got my vaccination yesterday, the 3rd of May. I thought I would just share the entire process with you. As I said, if you have any questions, probably this video is going to answer all of those questions, so please watch it in its entirety. But if you are only curious about any particular part of the process, I have chapters or timestamps in the description box that will talk to you about like those parts of the process. I'm gonna broach registration, I'm gonna broach experience at the vaccine center. I'm also gonna talk about side effects and my experience post-vaccine. Before we actually get into that part, one thing that I have to tell you guys is that I'm not a medical professional in any way. So anything that I share with you guys in this video is not any kind of medical advice. That is something that you should always consult a doctor about. I'm just sharing my experience to sort of help you guys, to maybe prepare you guys. For the first and second phases, which is the above 60-year-olds and then the 45 to 60-year-olds, there were walk-in vaccinations available, meaning you could just go to the center, you could queue up and get vaccinated. But since the third phase has just started and it's in its very early stages, and also because India is experiencing a really acute shortage of all of the vaccines, my age group, the 18 to 45-year-olds, can only really get vaccinated at this stage via an appointment. You cannot really go to a vaccine center without an appointment. You will not get it. So you need to have booked your slot, and that is the only way you can get vaccinated. There's also no way to choose which vaccine you get. There are currently 2 vaccines available in India. I guess there is Covishield, which is manufactured by Serum Institute of India, but that's actually the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, which is one of the more famous vaccines that's available in many countries in the world. And then the other vaccine that's available is called Covaxin. That's a vaccine that has been developed in India itself by Bharat Biotech. Now both of the vaccines work slightly differently, but both of them, when you take both doses, they actually give you a good amount of immunity against coronavirus. And under this vaccine drive, you're not able to choose which vaccine you would get. That is not an option currently. So I did have a soft preference towards the Covishield vaccine, and I did get the Covishield vaccine itself. But in case I was going to be getting Covaxin, I would take it. I think that it's okay to kind of prefer one of the vaccines, but I do not think you should delay getting a vaccine because you have a preference for one or the other. At the stage that we are now, any vaccine will give you a good amount of protection. Please don't hold on to the idea that you only want to take one of them. I guess Covishield is the one that's more widely available, so you have a higher chance of getting that. But you could also get Covaxin. Whichever vaccine you take for your first dose, you have to take the same one for the second dose. So you cannot take first dose Covishield and second dose Covaxin. That is not something you can do, and it's probably a little bit dangerous. The way that you can register for the vaccine is on the Government of India website called COVID. I'm going to leave the exact link to the website in the description. This is the official central government platform in India. So that means in whichever state you are in India, this is the platform for which you have to register. Some of the other parts that I'm going to talk about later on, those may be specific to Maharashtra or those may be specific to Mumbai, but registering on COVID, that is the same for the whole of India. You can also register on 2 different apps which are Government of India apps. There's Arogya Setu and Umang app, I guess. I feel that the COVID platform is going to be your best bet. It works equally well on a computer or on your phone. The registration actually happens in 2 parts. So this is how the COVID homepage looks like on your phone. It looks pretty much the same on a computer as well. You can see that you can actually check the centers on the homepage itself. So you can maybe see what centers are around you. I would recommend signing up on the platform first. Now it's quite easy to sign up. All you have to do is pick the option that says, I think, self-registration, and a new browser or a new tab will open. So just put in your phone number over there, and then you will get an OTP or a one-time password. It will come on your phone number. I think it's 6 digits, and you just need to enter the OTP and you get into the COVID platform. Once you are logged into the COVID platform, the first thing you'll have to do is enroll your name. So for that, you need to keep your ID proof handy. So there are multiple different options for IDs. I used my Aadhaar card because I thought that would be one of the most efficient IDs, but you can use an Aadhaar card, driving license, PAN card, passport, pension passbook, NPR smart card, or voter ID. Whatever ID you are planning to use, keep that ID with you when you are registering, because based on whatever ID you pick, they will ask you for the number. So if you use Aadhaar card, you'll have to put in your Aadhaar number. If you use your passport, you'll have to put in your passport number, and basically that. They'll also ask you for your full name, and make sure that whatever your full name you put, it matches exactly with the ID that you're using. So if your middle name is mentioned on your ID, then make sure you mention your middle name on the COVID platform also. It just has to match exactly. And then they will ask you for your year of birth. They will not ask you for your full birth date, but you will have to mention the year in which you were born. Once you submit that, your name is registered on the COVID platform. You'll probably get an SMS that mentions your full name and it says you are successfully registered for COVID vaccination. And that doesn't mean that you got a slot. That is the second part of it, but it just means that you're on the platform and you will be able to get a slot in the future. So you are done with the first part of your vaccination registration. The second part, of course, is getting slots, which is a little bit challenging. This will depend on where you live in India, because I mentioned earlier that there is a vaccine shortage. So because of that, slots are very, very limited. And if you are in my age group, you need to get a slot right now, and the vaccination is not open to people who do not register on the platform. I'm sure once there are more vaccines available, you may be able to walk in, but at this stage, you can't do it without a slot. If you are looking for a slot in Mumbai, my first recommendation would be get a Twitter account. If you already have a Twitter account, that's great. If not, sign up for Twitter and follow the BMC account on Twitter. I believe it's called My BMC. So make sure you follow the account and make sure you also turn on notifications. BMC account is really quite active, and I think they're doing a really good job with keeping all of the citizens of Mumbai very well notified of the vaccination drive, which centers are operational, etc. So when you see all of the slots that are available and all of the different centers that have the vaccine available, you will probably see that majority of the centers only really give the vaccine to 45 plus, and there are just few centers that are giving it to 18 plus. So it will be mentioned next to the booking slot area whether it's 18 plus or 45 plus. So they release it the night before just for the next day. Right now they're not releasing slots any days in advance. By tonight they will release slots for tomorrow. Since the last 2 or 3 days they have been releasing slots at 7:30 p.m. every day. There are currently only 5 centers throughout Mumbai that are giving the vaccination to our age group, which is the 18 to 45-year-old age group. If you are in an older age group, there are many more centers. This is the list of the 5 centers currently working. And if you're watching this video a few weeks in the future, then maybe there'll be more centers. Go below this video and check the top pinned comment, because I will leave an update there if more centers are opened up. I live fairly close to one of them, Seven Hills Hospital. My parents also got vaccinated at Seven Hills. It used to be a private hospital, but now it's a government center. It is only like a COVID hospital right now, so it's not a regular hospital. It just has COVID beds. It has a pretty good capacity for COVID vaccination drive as well. When they released slots on the 1st of May, there were just 200 slots per center, so 5 centers. There were just 1,000 slots total. After that, now they have been releasing 500 slots per center per day. That's still a really small number considering the higher population in Mumbai. So getting a slot right now is still a really competitive process. They've been releasing slots around 7:30, and without fail the slots go within 1 to 2 minutes. So you need to be logged into the platform and you need to keep refreshing around that time. And then also there's no guarantee that you'll get it. I did that, like I knew the slots were going to release at 7:30, so that's how I was able to get one. But there's an element of luck as well, because you can imagine that thousands or lakhs of people are trying to book a slot when it releases, and there are just 500 slots per center. It's definitely a stressful experience, but if you do not get a slot, please don't worry too much, you guys, because there will definitely be more vaccinations in the future. But right now slots are extremely limited. So if you're lucky enough to get a slot, you will get an SMS within like 1 or 2 minutes usually that says your full name, like it mentions that, and it says your vaccination is scheduled. It will mention the date and it will mention your time preference. Now the time preference that I picked is 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That time preference doesn't really matter, just your date matters, and I would recommend going earlier in the morning because there will be some waiting at the center. I know of some people who got really lucky and were able to get in and out of the center so quickly. I had to queue up for like an hour. I got out of my house by 9:30. I was there by 10 a.m., which was an hour earlier than my time preference. So you can be a little earlier, you can be a little later. I would of course recommend going earlier. That will ensure that you are able to get the vaccine on the day that you have selected. If you're able to successfully get a slot, we're going to move on to the next section, which is going to the vaccine center and getting your vaccination. You will need to carry your ID with you, and that is the same official ID that you have used to sign up on the CoWIN platforms. I carried my Aadhaar card. I mentioned that I went 1 hour before my time preference on the day. The day that I went, obviously they were only giving the 18 to 45-year-old age group at the center. I've heard that from today there are centers that are giving the 18 to 45-year-old age group as well as the 45 plus age group, but usually there are going to be separate queues for this, so you don't really need to worry. So I had to queue up outside the center for approximately 1 hour. The queue was actually really nice. It was socially distanced and I didn't really have to be too close to the person in front of me or behind me. So other than the ID, which is absolutely compulsory to carry, you would probably need to have a few more things with you just so that you are safe and you are comfortable. You absolutely have to wear a mask when you go to the center. You should be wearing a mask all of the time. Even if you're fully vaccinated, it's just much safer to wear a mask. And since the start of the pandemic, I had been wearing cloth masks, but now a lot of people are saying just cloth masks are inadequate protection. So you basically have 2 options. So if you want to wear a cloth mask, you have to double mask with the surgical mask as well. So I'm just going to show you how you would do that. So you can just put the surgical mask on first. In case it's like not tight enough, you can even twist these little ear straps to make the whole mask sit on your face a little bit tighter. And then once the surgical mask is on, then put on your cloth mask. And the second option is of course to wear an N95 mask, which gives you a greater deal of protection. When I heard that, I purchased N95 masks for the whole family, and it had been my first time stepping out of the house to get this vaccine in like a month. I think I wore the N95 mask for the first time. I thought it might be uncomfortable, but it's actually not uncomfortable. So the one I bought, I believe, had straps around your whole head rather than just ear straps. This is kind of the way you have to put it. You just see that the nose pin is at the top, and then just kind of put it on your face and tighten the two straps behind your head. When I actually went for the vaccine, I had a ponytail also, so I put one strap below my ponytail, one strap above. As long as it's tight and it's in place, I found the mask surprisingly comfortable, because there's actually room between, like, you know, your nose and mouth. The mask is not completely touching, so you have that little space. You know, you can easily wear a mask for a long period of time. Also with you, you should carry hand sanitizer, and in case you have a really long wait ahead of you, then also carry water, and maybe carry some kind of snack just in case of an emergency. So, you know, you can carry like a nutrition bar with you, or protein bar or something. And I would recommend don't eat at the center, but in case you have a really long wait, maybe you can just eat something so that you don't faint or whatever. It's really hot outside. A lot of the queues you have to stand, so just be prepared by carrying that. When my parents went for their second dose of vaccine, they hadn't really carried anything, and they had to wait for 4 hours. That's kind of a worst case scenario, but you know, it's nice to just be prepared. If you touch any surfaces, make sure to sanitize your hands. I also saw people who had face shields at the center, and then I saw people who carried sanitizing sprays. I did not feel that those two were necessary for me personally. In case you feel like you want to wear a face shield, or you want to carry a sanitizing spray with you for surfaces, then you know, definitely carry it, because it's better to be too careful than to take this crisis lightly at this point. I believe I took about 2 hours for the whole process, little under 2 hours in fact, out of which almost 1 hour, like about 50 minutes, was spent in the queue outside. You just need to show them the SMS that you got. When I was there, they just took my ID and they checked in the computer that I had an appointment, and then they gave me this little yellow slip. It was extremely well managed. I think the BMC and all of the people working on the vaccines are doing a wonderful job. They are putting in so much of hard work to keep Mumbai safe. So once I really got into the hospital with that slip, I had to wait another 10-15 minutes, but it was much more comfortable inside the hospital. So when I was waiting at another queue inside the hospital, they took that small yellow slip that they had given me, and they gave me a little larger paper. So in that paper, I had to fill out a few things. Carry a pen with you, otherwise you will have to borrow pens from people. But fill in your full name, fill in your phone number, the same one that you registered on the COVID platform with, and you have to mention your age. Most of this paper is otherwise in Marathi, so if you can't really read or understand Marathi, it's not a big deal. It basically just has helpline numbers in case you have any adverse effects to the vaccine or anything like that. So once you fill that out, you will be taken into like the vaccination room. There are like these small rooms with 2 people in them. One of the person will note down on your paper a few things, and the other person will actually administer the vaccine to you. The vaccine is actually given to you in a pretty small syringe, and the needle is small. It's not a big amount or anything like that. Even if you're scared of needles, it is not a painful vaccine. They administer it intramuscular or IM on your upper left arm. So wear something with which you can lift it nicely. It will just take a couple of minutes. In case you're nervous, there's a possibility that, you know, you'll be like tense on the seat and you won't realize it, but your whole body clenches up, your muscles clench up, and that makes the vaccine more painful. I think it's really natural for most people to get tense on the seat, even if they're not like very scared of the vaccine or anything. Just try to breathe 1 or 2 deep breaths, relax your body a little. That will make the process easier. Before you know it, the vaccine will be administered, and the person who's in the room will give you that like larger paper I talked about. Then you have to get out of that vaccine cubicle and you have to submit your paper to another person, because post-vaccination there is a 30-minute observation period where you just have to sit down and see that you're not going to faint. So they'll take that paper from you and they'll give it back to you after 30 minutes and they'll tell you that time that you can go home. Now, I was under observation for the entirety of 30 minutes with my parents. I think they let them go in like 10 minutes for the second dose. So this 30-minute observation is not being like observed everywhere, because I know other people who got vaccinated in Mumbai who were able to just leave after the vaccination. Anyway, after the observation period is over, they will give you back that paper and there will be a little note there that on which date you got the vaccine and which vaccine you got. You need to keep this with you because they will mention on that same paper when you get your second dose. After that, you just get to go home, and you may experience some vaccine side effects later in the day usually. So that is what we are going to talk about right now. Now, side effects in vaccines are really normal. You'll notice that even when you give a baby vaccines, they'll often get fever or feel sick for a few days and then it's back to normal. So, you don't really have to fear them too much, but it helps if you know what to expect. So for the vaccine that I took, which is Covishield or the AstraZeneca vaccine, my parents had almost no side effects. Like my mom just had a little bit of arm pain and my dad just had a little bit of fever, and it went away so quickly. But I have experienced more side effects than that in the last day. And there's actually some data to support that. A lot of people I spoke to on Twitter who are around my age said they got much more side effects than their parents. So somehow this vaccination does give younger people worse side effects. The AstraZeneca vaccine is more likely to give you side effects if you are young, if you are a woman, or if you have recovered from COVID. I've never had COVID, but I am in the younger age group and I am a woman. I got the vaccine around 11:20 or so a.m. and the first side effects I started noticing were around 7 p.m. The first thing that I felt was that my body was feeling a little extra weak, and that is something that I usually experience before I get a flu or a common cold. But if you're standing, your legs feel shaky, and if you're holding something heavy, your arms feel shaky. So that was what I experienced first, and I was like, oh, okay. That was around 7 p.m. Around 8:30 p.m. I started feeling slightly feverish. It was not a very strong fever. In fact, when I asked my mom to touch, she could not feel it, but I could definitely feel that I was feverish. By then, my arm had started aching a little bit, just this area. The arm stuff was not bothering me. It was very minor, and I could only really feel the arm pain if I just lifted my hand. Then you become aware of this pain and this weight, this ache. Once I got the fever, I decided that I would take a tablet for it. So they recommend, I think, that you can take either ʟᴑ or ᴠɪᴅᴜᴛ. That's something that you should consult with your own doctor. ʟᴑ will deal with minor aches, ʟᴑ will deal with fever, and I took that medication around 9 or 9:30, and within half an hour, 45 minutes, I was feeling like on top of the world because my fever had gone, my body was feeling strong, and it also dealt with the pain of my arms. I was feeling really good. But I was awake really late. By 2 a.m. I started feeling a little feverish again, so I took another half and went to sleep. And then I didn't wake up anytime throughout the night. In fact, I slept much deeper than I usually do. I was just feeling tired. Another vaccine side effect. As if I'd worked so much and I had not. So when I woke up this morning, I didn't really have a fever, but I did have a pretty intense body ache. So if I sat up, my back was paining, my arm was paining a lot more this morning than it was yesterday, but I didn't have fever. Just a really bad body ache, and my joints and muscles were paining a little bit. The muscles ached as if I had exercised, and I had not exercised. Apparently, almost all of the side effects go away by 48 hours. So I think that, I'm done with experiencing these things. Everyone's experience is going to be a little bit different, so expect these things, but they are just a cinch to deal with, yeah. They're so minor. You can just take a tablet and you'll be totally fine. In case you're working from home, you may be able to continue working the next day, or you might just take a day off or something. So if you live alone, might want to order food, or you might want to cook food for later that you can heat up. And just know that you'll probably need to take it slow for a day or maximum 2 days, and after that you should be completely fine. So there are some reports of the AstraZeneca vaccine as well as some other vaccines causing slight disruption with your menstrual cycle or your periods. So a lot of people said abroad that after they took the vaccine, they got a longer period, they got a heavier period, but that's actually completely normal, you know. A lot of the cells that's around our uterus are actually related to our immune system. So the vaccine helps your immune system, but that's why it might disrupt your period once. So I don't know if it's gonna affect my period, but I'll have to wait and see a little bit. I'm expecting it, and that's completely fine. The AstraZeneca vaccine also got some controversy for the chance of it giving people blood clots. The amount of people that have experienced that side effect is so minuscule. It's just really tiny amount of people. So that was a risk that I was personally willing to take, because I've seen the way that COVID can affect people, including people who are often young, who don't have any comorbidities, nothing, have got serious COVID, and some have even passed away. You know, you have to weigh the risk and think, is it worth it? I was not too concerned about the blood clot data. There are a lot of other medications that you're taking that actually have a higher risk of blood clots than the COVID vaccine. If you are on birth control pills or hormonal birth control, that actually has a higher risk of blood clots than the COVID vaccine. In case you are pregnant or a mom that's breastfeeding, I got a few questions that can you take the vaccine. And in India, basically they don't recommend taking the vaccine while pregnant, but in foreign countries there are people taking the vaccine. Also, definitely consult with your doctor. Once you get your first vaccine, initially the government was saying that you have to wait 28 days for your second one. Even on the COVID platform, it says that you have to wait 28 days for your second one. But the government's actually updated that now. According to the WHO, the World Health Organization, who says that this vaccine works better if you space out the doses a little bit more. You need to keep 45 days between your first vaccine dose and your second vaccine dose. So even though the COVID platform says that you have to wait just 28 days, it's wrong, and pretty much no vaccine center in India will give you your second dose of the vaccine if you've not completed 45 days. So I really hope that is updated on COVID soon, and the ideal window is between 45 days to 60 days after your first dose. That's when you get your second one. And I'm just going to end this by saying that I'm really very thankful for the way our state leadership in Maharashtra has handled this crisis. It seems like they're doing a really great job of keeping the COVID numbers down and of having enough medical facilities to deal with any infections, which unfortunately has not been the case in the rest of India. There are still a lot of people struggling to find beds, struggling to find oxygen. So it's really very bleak, and I hope that things improve a little soon, because I just feel so helpless about that. In case vaccinations have opened up in your area, please get vaccinated as soon as possible, because that's the way you can protect yourself and the people around you. I am really grateful to get vaccinated, and hopefully, you know, after 45 days I'll be able to get my second dose smoothly, and then I'll have a greater amount of protection. Even after the second vaccine, it takes like another month for your full immunity to be affected to get the maximum amount of protection. After you're fully vaccinated, you can still get COVID. It's not that you won't get it, but you will probably have a much milder infection, and you probably will not need to be admitted into the hospital. You probably won't need oxygen. Those are only severe cases, and once you are vaccinated, your chances of getting a severe case is almost nil. I know a lot of people in the high risk category who actually contracted COVID after getting their first vaccine, and because of that they've got really mild case and they were able to recover at home. If you have also gotten vaccinated, if you're in any age group, you can share your experience in the comments below. You can mention your age, maybe, like you don't have to mention any other personal details, but you can mention which vaccine you got and what side effects you had, because we can discuss that over there, and everyone's experience is really different. This is a pro science YouTube channel. This is not really a place for anti-vaxxers, and if you don't want to get vaccinated, I guess that's your choice. A really bad choice, but it is your choice. Just know that I will not be amplifying any anti-vax kind of voices. I believe in science, and I completely believe in the power of vaccines to help slow down and stop a major global pandemic that we are in right now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video.